Chapter 1. Miles Kim took a polite sip of the bitter oolong tea from the demitasse, his metal fingers carefully gripping the fishbone-thin handle of the cup. He sat on the edge of the butterscotch love seat, not wanting to lean further back to disturb the nest of embroidered pillows or allow his dusty pants to further soil the velvet. The woman seated on the wing sofa across from him was Beatrix Fish, a fellow Seraph Express passenger and survivor of the bandit and robot attack which had almost cost them their lives. Her creased face was grave with concern. She ignored her own teacup, which had been placed before her by the well-manicured maid wearing an apron, not to be confused with the maid in the long tunic who had greeted Miles at the front door. Both servants had discreetly departed the lounge, or was it a sitting room? Miles had never been inside a house quite like the Fish mansion. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Kim," Beatrix said. "It's my daughter. She's missing, and I thought a person like you—" "You can say cyborg. It's not a bad word, at least not with everyone. A person who is a former police officer with Meridian's Armed Services. After our recent misfortunes, I see I can count on you." "Seraph has its own law enforcement," Miles said. Beatrix waved the comment aside. "The militias can't be trusted, and the Marshal Service will cry about jurisdictional issues. What fop. Plus, they're incompetent when it comes to dealing with a matter with discretion. A kidnapping isn't something to drag your feet on, Mrs. Fish. I worked with Marshal Barma when we pursued the people who attacked our train. He may be a stick in the mud, but he's not incompetent. The good Marshal may be able, but it's the rest of his office I don't trust. Rumors. Grift. They answer to the mayor's office and the sheriff. Not much better than the militia. I'd prefer to work with you." Miles set the cup on the saucer. "If your daughter was taken, I don't get you shopping around. This is straightforward police work. I'm new in town, don't know the place, don't have resources. You've got the wrong man. It's for those reasons I have precisely the right one. This wasn't some smash and grab of a child, Mr. Kim. My Agatha was taken by my husband." "Is Mr. Fish not around?" "Not since our separation. He's taken up in our New Springs estate on the north side of Seraph." Miles waited for more, but she was looking at him expectantly. "I don't know you or your husband. What are we even talking about here? Did he strong-arm his way into your home last night?" "Nothing so brutish. He lured her away and had one of his henchmen pick her up and bring her to him. He doesn't love her, won't care for her. He just wants her because she and our oldest daughter stayed with me after our separation. All the more reason to involve Seraph law. If I show up at his front door asking for Agatha, he calls the cops. The real ones, whoever they might be. But that's precisely what he won't do. He doesn't trust the militias or the marshals either. That's why he hires the best bodyguards. Allowing Seraph law into his business means an avalanche of itching palms to keep tongues from wagging." Miles ran his left hand along the seam of the cushion. "So, he's into some shady dealings." She let out a laugh. "You really aren't from here, are you? Shady dealings indeed. He has a chokehold on machine imports from Meridian and is now actively cornering the market in New Pacific. Seraph lies in the middle. Every sale, every purchase means more credits in his coffer. But we're not here to discuss commerce. Can I count on you?" "I'm one man." "And you'll be rewarded." She mentioned an amount. "That's for agreeing to help. Twice that upon bringing Agatha home." He picked up the cup and drained it. It was a lot of credits, way more than what he would have received by selling his cybernetics. Enough to make his son Dylan comfortable for years. "I'll think about it." She scowled. "What do you mean?" "It means I'll think about it. Agatha wasn't swiped by some metalhead. It sounds like she'll be safe for a day or two. Let me get my bearings and call you this afternoon." "This is pressing. My girl needs to be rescued. If it can't wait a few hours, then find someone else. If it can, and I decide to help, then I'll get Agatha back. Those are the options. Is there a way to reach you?" Beatrix leaned back and appeared winded. "Talk to Celia on the way out. She'll provide a contact number. And Mr. Kim? Don't make a mother beg. It's unbecoming." waited at the front door to the mansion with a physical contact card ready. She had also offered to send Miles back to the center of town with Mrs. Fish's driver, who had picked him up at his hotel. Miles declined. He wanted to walk. Time to think. Time to see more of Seraph, to understand the town, which was a world of difference from Meridian. 10 minutes into his walk and he was second-guessing his choice. Sweat trickled down his face and back. The pre-noon sun weighed like a thick blanket. His hips ached with every step on the unyielding concrete and hard dirt roads. The larger homes gave way to row after row of sealed greenhouses. A damp soil smell permeated the air. Electric trucks and wheeled or walking delivery drones roamed the alleyways. Workers loaded pallets with boxed goods. A radio from a nearby greenhouse played the yammer of a dramatic reading or religious program. A refrigerator van rolled past, marked with a logo boasting a literal cornucopia of strawberries, honeydew, tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers, the engine a high whine that drowned out the broadcast. Help! The cry carried from a narrow lane between a block of warehouses and a plastic-windowed farm, where a large sliding door stood halfway open. Miles looked around, saw no one, and then came a muffled scream, which cut off. Miles ran. He ducked to get under the raised door and found himself in an overgrown greenhouse where bushy lettuce grew in rows on a raised bed. He heard splashing, so he climbed a metal ladder to get a better look. Below the troughs of lettuce was a pool of dark water, and someone was thrashing. Ripples grew, and a head of hair was the last thing Miles saw as the person sank. He was about to dive in when he spotted a pole and hook. He grabbed it and lanced it downward. A hand grabbed the end, then Miles pulled, yanking a small man wearing baggy shorts and a tank top to the surface. The man sputtered, hacked, and was dead weight as Miles snagged him by the collar and hauled him to the edge of the pool. With a last heave, he got the man flopped over the side. Water sprayed every time the man coughed. "I got you," Miles said. "You're okay." The man nodded, then shook his head as he pulled himself from the water. His arms were trembling and he needed help standing, but he was pushing at Miles, leading him towards the exit. "Take it easy," Miles said. "Sit. Breathe." "Can't," the man rasped. "They're coming." Voices from the opposite end of the greenhouse shouted. A half-dozen men were hurrying towards them. Miles only had seconds to decide what to do. He shoved the man along with him as they passed beneath the door and raced out of the alley. The long avenue and alleyways ran in every direction, hardly a place to easily evade a group of determined pursuers. But the sopping wet man tugged on Miles and brought him to a parked three-wheel motor wagon with no doors. Miles joined the man in the cab. The man thumbed a control panel and started the engine, putting the vehicle into gear and racing forward as the gang of workers erupted onto the street. They sped past the men to a chorus of jeers and shaking fists. The man coughed again, spat, then laughed. Miles hung onto the lip of the cab's roof as they took a corner. "What's so funny? Didn't expect I'd almost drown in the middle of the desert. Was it worth it trying to steal lettuce?" "Lettuce? Bleh, can't stand the stuff. But the fish they keep in the pond below? That's good eating. Shame about my line and hook." "You were stealing fish. It wasn't a question. A man's got to eat, and they've got some fat tilapia swimming in those ponds. Thank you, by the way." The man glanced at Miles a few times before finally inspecting him more thoroughly. "Say, you're a guy who is in the right place at the right time," Miles finished for him. "You'd better think twice about coming back and pilfering lunch from that farm." "Yeah, I've got plenty of other spots, though. Seraph provides when you know where to look. Name's Tristan." Miles. They took another corner. A stepladder, buckets of rags, hoses, and a compressor shifted about in the three-wheeler's bed. Tristan slowed down as he wended around a large container being unloaded. "You're a painter?" Miles asked. "Painting, sealing, patchwork, even a little plumbing. No job too small." "Then why don't you build your own fish ponds so you don't have to steal them?" Tristan flashed a mouthful of yellow teeth. "Where's the fun in that? Besides, then I'd be the one fending off the filching anglers. You don't appear like you work in the Green District, Miles." Passing through, taking in the sights. Tristan wiped his thin, wet hair from his eyes. Premature pattern hair loss, soft around the middle, with ink up and down both arms. Younger than Miles had first guessed. Perhaps early 30s? Taking in the sights, Tristan said. That's rich, but minding your own is good sense. There's a towel behind the seats. Wouldn't want you to rust. So then, Mr. Tourist, where can I drop you off? Tristan pulled up to a corner. Marshal's office is that white building there. That's as far as I get you. Miles climbed out and gave a goodbye wave before straightening his hat. He still had the damp towel in his hand, but Tristan's three-wheeler was already pulling away. Seraph Marshal Office, the plaque read. The tinted glass doors made it impossible to tell if the office was open. Miles pushed the door in and entered. A black drone with an illuminated red eye sat atop a metal screen at the end of a short hallway. A heavy door with a view slot stood closed. Alt, present identification, a canned woman's voice said. Miles didn't have any. I want to speak with Marshal Barma. Tell him it's Miles Kim. Identification. He tried to assess if the drone perched atop the shelf was armed, but without a close inspection it proved impossible. I'm not carrying an ID. Tell the marshal I was by. When he turned to leave, the exit door was locked. Remain where you are, hands at your sides. Miles tugged and pushed at either door for good measure. Had word gotten out that he was alive and well in Seraph? Had Marshal Barma changed his mind about him and learned of the bounty on Miles's head? The drone's light winked out. The heavy interior door buzzed and clicked open. A stern woman in a white button-down shirt and a badge on her chest swung the door wide. She wore a compact burner in a holster high on her right hip. Please, come with me. Barma's in? Yes, Mr. Kim. And he agrees to see you despite your lack of any identification. Are you armed? Just my charming smile. She scowled as she conducted him inside. The office appeared small considering the size of the building, but beyond several desks and cubicles was an inside atrium with large ferns and a tulip-shaped fountain that trickled water. Barma rose from a cubicle. A large man, he wore suspenders, and his shirt front dangled over his belt. But like the receptionist, he was also packing. A stubby hand cannon dangled from a shoulder holster. The robot lives, the marshal said. And you made it past Glinda. Congratulations. I thought you'd be plugged in somewhere recharging your batteries. My hotel didn't have an adapter. What do you want? Miles rounded the cubicle. There was no guest chair. You check on Hill? Hill was the young girl from the desert village whose father Zune had ambushed Miles and the marshal. Zune had tried to hand them over to an insane man-machiner overlord living in an abandoned mine. Zune had then been gunned down by Don Moriti, the vanished Meridian agent who held a warrant for bringing the AWOL Miles Kim back to River City. But Dawn had let him go for what Miles guessed was the short-term gain of a valuable haul of mystery tech from the aftermath of the train robbery. I haven't checked again since early this morning. Been busy, and this is no longer your concern. If you have a police matter, go to the sheriff's office and he'll assign a militia rep. Even better, the nearest information kiosk will summon a militia patrol. There's one right outside. Miles waited. The marshal sighed and continued. All right, she's fine. I had a chat with the psychologist at the home. Hill had a rough first few hours and then she was sleeping. He guesses she's never been anywhere but that stupid village, has never been around other adults or children, and she's going to have a battle on her hands acclimating. But she's young, so there's that. Resilience and all. So, are we doing twice-a-day updates now? You could have just called, because I really do have work. What do you know about the fishes? The marshal grunted. I'm guessing you got in contact with Beatrix. I just wrapped up a visit with her at her home. Says her daughter Agatha is missing and was taken by her husband. The marshal scowled before leading Miles to the atrium. He slid the door shut, then they sat at the curved stone benches around the fountain. The receptionist gave them a hard look through the glass before returning to her own work. Miles had spotted no one else in the office. So what do you want to know? Barma asked. I didn't agree to the job and told her I'd get back to her. Ha, that's bold. I'm sure she offered you a pretty good payday. I want to know what I'm stepping into. Pretty wise for a robot. You're tiptoeing into something deep and nasty if you go to work for her. And is that why she wouldn't go to any of the local law? Partly, Barma said. Anyone who's been around Seraph for long knows about Beatrix and Fish. They're the top of the heap as far as money goes. Old school Seraph before the town was a town, and they did things differently back then. Since she asked for you, I'm guessing the sheriff wouldn't touch this, and I doubt either of the militias would either. Who'd want to wind up on the nasty side of either of them? So, both Mr. and Mrs. Fish are rich and influential, but what about the kid? Agatha, younger of the daughters. Doubt either mother or father cares much about her, except they'd rather die than let the other parent have custody. Both girls are with the mother, from what I've heard. So Gennady made some kind of play. Bad news. How? Miles asked. If a fish decides to shake things up, the town feels the vibrations. Is that why we're taking this sidebar in your little grotto? Barma let out a humorless chuckle. I trust Glinda with my life, but when the fish name gets thrown around, all bets are off. And you couldn't have warned me about this when you told me she called your office looking for me. I almost died down in that mine, Ken. I have a mountain of paperwork. The autodoc told me to take a month off and get counseling for what I've been through. I'm running on fumes. Give me a break. So what are you going to do? What I used to tell the patrol officers under me when I was gainfully employed. Chapter 4. Miles squinted as his eyes adjusted to the sunlight outside the Seraph Marshal's office. He started walking in the direction he hoped would take him back to his hotel. When the dark sedan cut him off at the mouth of the alley, and two figures in tan suits and white ties emerged, he stepped back and instinctively placed a hand on his hip. But he wasn't carrying a burner. The largest of the two, a bruiser with no neck and a white crew cut, caught Miles and thrust him against the wall of the alley. Before Miles could protest, the second stranger, a wiry female with a blonde ponytail, socked him in the gut hard enough that he would have doubled over if he hadn't been held. Miles grabbed for the bruiser's wrist and clamped down with his metal hand. Even as he applied pressure, Ponytail jammed a shocker into his neck. Electricity clattered as pain erupted through his head and body. He fell helplessly forward. His two assailants stepped back and let him drop. Then the bruiser kicked him in the ribs. "Stay away from Beatrix Fish, AK," Ponytail said. Miles fought to speak through a clenched jaw. "Who's asking?" "Cyborg must have a hearing impediment," Crewcut said as he wound up for another kick. A bleeding horn preceded a squeal of tires as Tristan's three-wheel cart skidded into the alley, smashing the sedan's open door. Tristan slid out of the vehicle's cab. "Whoops, sorry about that. My foot slipped off the brake pedal. What are you doing blocking the alley?" Ponytail met him at the rear bumper and gave him a shove. "Move that piece of junk." "Sure, no problem. Let me just give you my insurance number." A handful of pedestrians were watching from the sidewalk. Tristan began sifting through the three-wheeler's glove box. "Got my device in here somewhere." "Don't bother," Ponytail said as she went to the sedan's driver's side door. "Come on, Raz." Raz gave Miles a parting kick before the two assailants climbed into their car, backed into the street, and sped away. Broken door flapping on its busted hinges. Miles forced himself to rise but couldn't get a better look at the departing vehicle as a whirl of dust rose into the air. He double-blinked to clear the reboot interface from his Insight module. Needed to clear his head. "What are you doing here, Tristan?" Dimples formed as Tristan beamed. "Lucky I was lingering across the street. Was checking SeraphNet for day jobs." "What was that about?" "None of your business. What you did was stupid." Maybe. Pretty bold smash and grab. Don't normally see bandits dressed so nicely." "They worked for the Fishes." Tristan frowned. "The Fishes?" "Yeah, none other." Miles limped to the three-wheeler's passenger seat and sat gingerly down. "Now, why don't you give me a lift? I'll pay you for the ride." "Where to?" "Beatrix Fish's home. I have a job offer on the table, and I'm going to accept." A sharp pain persisted in his ribs. It hurt just to inhale. Miles couldn't have worn the seatbelt even if there was one, as Tristan puttered through light street traffic. He called Beatrix Fish. Her virtual assistant answered. "Mrs. Fish is unavailable right now. You may leave a message." "I'm coming over," Miles said. "I'll find Agatha, but I have more questions." "She will consider your request. Goodbye." Stupid machine. He winced as he put the phone away, then dabbed blood from his lower lip. Tristan slowed down to a crawl. "While your offer of gainful employment is generous, I'm having second thoughts. You should have second thoughts, too. If you don't want the work, then you can leave once you drop me off. You weren't scared when you thought those thugs were robbers." "I didn't know who they worked for. Pretty bold to jump someone right outside the marshal's office." "Interesting, isn't it?" "It's not the word I'd use." They once again passed through the Green District, taking the main boulevard and avoiding the warehouses. Miles gave directions as his insight module was back up. He had seen enough of the neighborhood to get oriented instantly. Soon they were driving among the large homes and lush landscaping of what Insight labeled the Woodbine neighborhood. Beatrix Fish's two-floor mansion peered over the elm trees. The shining steel gates stood open, and Tristan drove them up the roundabout and pulled up in front of the entrance. He kept the engine idling. "Will you be here when I'm done?" Miles asked. "I haven't decided yet. Will you be allowed to leave? Someone could get lost in a place like this." Miles didn't answer as he climbed the steps to the door. It opened before he could touch the bell. A young woman stood in the doorway. Her braided hair went down to her waist. She was wearing a blue kimono and had a vape stick between her fingers. Miles Kim. Mrs. Fish should be expecting me." She looked Miles over before stepping aside. "I know who you are. I'm Kitty. Beatrix is my mother. And you're the one she hired to find my sister Agatha." "Is your mother around?" he said as he stepped inside. Kitty closed the door behind him. "She's with her trainer at the pool. It'll be another 30 minutes. Celia, the maid in the long tunic who had greeted Miles the first time he had come to the mansion, came hurrying from down the marbled hallway. "It's okay, Celia," Kitty said. "I'll see to our guest until Mother's ready. Mr. Kim, won't you join me? Or do you prefer Miles?" "Miles is fine." She led him to a sweeping stairway. The high walls were decorated with long abstracts of soft colors, which reminded Miles of what a flower garden would look like if someone was on hallucinogens and losing their vision. An arched skylight let in the sun that spilled down onto the artwork spectacularly. The top of the stairs led to an upper hallway and an interior balcony which looked out at the foyer. More of the art decorated the walls. Kitty stopped at a door in the hall. "Coming? Perhaps I should wait for your mother in the reception room." "Suit yourself." He lingered for a moment alone, staring at blotches of vermilion and copper. Downstairs, Celia's footsteps were audible as she walked away. Miles went from frame to frame, taking in each painting, before arriving at the room where Kitty had vanished. "In here." Kitty sat at the foot of a canopy bed that was covered in a frilly pink and powder blue comforter and matching duvet. A dozen pillows and large stuffed bears, lions and tigers leaned on each other in a precarious pile. Bookcases were crowded with figurines, dolls, and hardbound books with embossed spines. A redwood writing desk held art supplies. Miles said, "I'll stay out here and wait for your mother, if you don't mind. And I'm guessing I'm older than your dad?" Kitty rolled her eyes. "I'm not as young as I look. This is Agatha's room. I thought you should see it, if you're going to be looking for her." He stepped in and gave the room a quick once-over. The room smelled of roses, a perfume or heavily scented soap, perhaps. On the desk between cups holding pens and colored pencils stood a small audio device. He clicked it on. "Soil was once sand," a raspy voice said from the speaker. "Sand was once rock. All things to dust, and from the dust, with God's breath, life. And all life is precious, my brethren." He switched it back off, then picked up the device and examined the tiny screen. Cheap, mass-produced, and something that might be purchased from a vending machine. It displayed a radio frequency. Not many radio stations existed, at least not in Meridian. Agatha liked to listen to that while she drew, Kitty said. Mom hated it. He put the radio down and checked the walk-in closet, which was as large as the kitchen in his old River City apartment near the military base. Some 20 pairs of shoes, 50-plus outfits, organized on hangers, toy chests, and the comfy smell of freshly laundered clothes. Some of the figurines on the shelves appeared to be made of gold and set with precious stones, among them a large striped cat, a poodle, and a pair of matching horses with opalescent eyes. The centerpiece on the middle bookshelf was a porcelain ballet dancer frozen in a pirouette, with her alabaster arms raised above her. Dance, Kitty said. The ballerina spun slowly. A tinny music box rendition of a vaguely familiar ballet played from a speaker within the figurine's base. Insight identified the piece. Swan Lake, composed by Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky. My sister had quite the collection, Kitty said. Our parents always got us the best. Looks like a lot of dusting to me, but that's what the help is for, right? Kitty smirked. Naturally. Outside the window was a view of the garden and pool. Beatrix Fish was doing laps, while a muscular-looking man in short shorts and a stopwatch stood and watched. Celia came hurrying up and got Beatrix's attention when she finished a lap. 2 minutes, 55 seconds, Kitty said. Miles looked up at her. Excuse me? How long it took Celia to make it to my mother and tell her you're upstairs with me. You're either very good at counting or you have an implant. It appears you do, too. She tapped behind her right ear. My weave tech can be taken out any time I want. Chapter 5. The mansion's kitchen was larger than Miles' hotel room. Beatrix was in a terry cloth wrap, her wet hair tied back with a band. She was bringing fruit out of one of 3 steel refrigerators and setting them by the counter. Blueberries, figs, plantains, guava, and a few hybrids Miles didn't recognize. The tayberry is a cross between a raspberry and blackberry, Insight offered. It is grown? He double-blinked to shut it up. Beatrix began loading the fruit into a blender. I'm glad you returned promptly. I was worried you might have been intimidated by my offer. Your offer's generous, not intimidating. Surely you know what I mean. My family has a reputation. Perhaps you took the time to do some research. I did. I learned you were very wealthy. She sneered before pulsing the blender and turning the fruit into a purplish-gray glop. And what else did you find out? Some people think you're dangerous and that you couldn't hire a local to do the job you're asking. This sounds like a negotiation for more funds. Done. 15% in addition upon returning Agatha safely. That's not why I bring it up. A couple of goons had a run at me, told me to stay away from you. Goons? She asked, as if unfamiliar with the term. A henchman used to intimidate or harm. The word goes back to the 15th century, according to my Insight module. My husband's people. He spies on this house. I'm a prisoner here. Describe them. Miles did. Beatrix paused in her smoothie prep to take in the description of the 2 who had attacked him before, filling a small glass and taking a sip. Made a face. She added a heap of grainy powder from a jar and stirred it in. Tasted it. Much better. Would you like one? No. So, these 2 employees of your husband have threatened you? Nothing so vulgar, but they linger outside on the street, watching. There are more than Raz and Trish. He has others, but they're his senior ruffians. They'll follow me around Seraph when I leave the house. They're the ones who took my girl. About that, they broke in? She tossed a hand. They lured Agatha outside somehow. It was the middle of the night. No smashed windows or doors, but it might as well have been. Is there security footage? Yes, of course. Celia will share the recordings. Celia had been standing by at the far side of the kitchen, head bowed, hands clasped, and at the mention of her name she stepped forward and nodded. In fact, Beatrix continued, whatever resources you need are at your disposal. My driver? I hired one to get back here. I'll include his services on my expense sheet. Of course. So besides you and Gennady living in separate homes, what's your relationship like? Beatrix had been stirring her smoothie, but now paused. What does that have to do with this? It seems central to this whole deal to me. Do you talk, exchange messages via lawyer? Do you have your own people watching him? I thought it might be prudent to understand the lay of the land between you. If I had my own gang of mercenaries or goons, I would have my daughter back already and wouldn't need outside help. And Gennady and I don't communicate. Does he talk to Kitty? Leave her out of this. I'd prefer if you don't speak with her either. She might be relevant to what I'm doing, Miles said. Was Kitty home when Agatha disappeared? I suppose she was. The staff would know. Something else to ask Celia. Miles would also need to learn who else was on the mansion's staff. Does Agatha ever step out on her own? Certainly not. She doesn't leave without me or one of the servants. She isn't allowed. Beatrix tasted her concoction again. I've ruined it. She set the full glass and pitcher into the sink. Is that enough background for you, Mr. Kim? It helps. I'll have a look at that footage now. Excellent. You have my contact number. Keep me informed. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an appointment for a treatment. Chapter 6. I took the liberty of cueing the footage for you, Mr. Kim, Celia said. She spoke with a clipped accent. The flat screen in the viewing room dominated the far wall. Miles had the remote in hand and watched the footage spool past from several angles. Timestamp showed early that morning at 1:17 a.m. when things got interesting. All the camera perspectives were outside the mansion, with one angle from a speaker box in front of the gate. A sedan pulled up. In the poor light it was impossible to tell the color, but the design and model appeared identical to the one the two goons had driven. None of the passengers were visible. The vehicle was mostly out of the shot, with only a rear fender in view. The rest of the mansion appeared quiet, with ground-level garden lights, and those leading to the front door serving as illumination. Anyone visiting would be seen, but there were plenty of dead spots, shadows, and paths to the house that had insufficient coverage. All this without considering ways to trick a camera. Miles began to fast forward and watch the minutes tick by. At 1:43 a.m. the sedan drove off. Celia pointed at the screen. If you play that back slowly, you see the cab light was on. He rewound and replayed the last minute in slow motion. As Celia had pointed out, the light inside the car had lit up, but the interior was a blur as the vehicle sped past, and only visible for a single frame. He paused, zoomed in, and caught a reasonably good view of one of Gennady Fish's thugs, Trish, the woman with a ponytail, with another adult in the front passenger seat. And there in the back was someone shorter with long hair. But the face wouldn't get any clearer. That's Agatha, Celia said. Miles replayed it a few more times, both slow and normal speed, freeze-framing the one scene over and over. But even with a keen eye, the bad resolution couldn't be fixed with the current interface. Kitty entered the screening room and slurped loudly at a straw in a cup. Did I miss the action? Apologies. My mother posted her swim lap times, and I wanted to see if her performance was improving. Spoiler alert? No gains this week. By the by, that's a fuzzy picture. Here, let me see that. She set her cup down and took the remote from Miles' hands. Blinked. The screen image sharpened until not only were the two goons' faces in perfect focus, but so was the girl in the back seat. Young, maybe 12 years old, but only half her face was visible, as it appeared she was trying to adjust herself on the seat while wearing a large backpack. Celia silently picked up the cup and placed it on a doily. Kitty handed the remote back. There's your proof of my sister's escape from Valhalla in search of El Dorado. Will she find her fortune? Will she ever be seen from again? Do you like your sister? Miles asked. Depends on the day, week, or month. I'm more interested in what you're going to do next. Off to storm Daddy's castle to rescue her? Do you believe she needs rescuing? My mother does. And you're being paid too. So what's the attack plan? Tell me about your father. She made a face, sat on one of the oversized leather chairs and spread her arms along the back as she crossed her legs. He works a lot. That about sums him up. Except when it comes to Mother, they have this thing. What kind of thing? Her grin widened. Her eyes darted toward Celia, who gave a deferential nod before ducking out of the viewing room. Miles recognized Kitty's expression, had seen it on the faces of the younger soldiers under his command. She wanted to dish. Miles took the chair beside hers. Explain this thing of theirs. Oh, I'd hate to spoil the surprise. You're an ex-military cop, aren't you? At least that's about all I can find out. Your record appears to be redacted or missing. Did you have people like us back in River City, when Seraph wasn't anything more than a trading post? I'm not that old. But yes, River City has families like yours. Wealthy, influential. Those are polite words, spoken like an employee trying hard not to rock the boat, or kill the goose that lays the platinum omelets. I'm going to get your sister back. That's why I'm here. I just need to understand why she was taken. Kitty nodded at the frozen image. Hardly a kidnapping. Does your mother have legal custody? If you know Seraph, you understand that's a tricky question. But yes, she does, at least on paper. And the paper says Gennady Fish doesn't get to see his daughter. Is he a bad father? Kitty rubbed the lapel of her kimono. Real silk. The fruit in that smoothie probably cost a day's wage for anyone working the greenhouses. 100,000-gallon pool out back. But you saw that already. It loses a half centimeter a day out here in the desert. We've got hard data lines to not only the Seraph net but Meridian and Pack City. For my birthday last year, Daddy got me this sapphire pendant. She loosened the robe to produce a necklace set with a blue stone the size of Miles' thumbnail. In good light, he guessed it would sparkle and be pretty. Doesn't make him a good parent, Miles said. Doesn't make him a bad one. Would he hurt Agatha? Kitty tucked the pendant away. Not physically, but what wouldn't he do to tweak my mother, all while making sure her every need is met? This place is his? Oh no, it's hers all right. She owns it and half of what he once owned, fair and square. He let her take it. It's only after the virtual documents were signed that things got interesting between them. When's the last time you saw him? She blinked hard. 2 months ago, for brunch. We met at the Caliper Club, just the two of us. He caught the faint illumination across her eyes. More than weave tech, he realized. Coronal implants, and good ones. Is that where he'd take you and Agatha? Sometimes, but never both of us at the same time. And while I can put up with his stuffy little lodge, Agatha hated it, always whining about the waste and lavishness. My father didn't know what to do with her when she started to lecture him. I'm sure he's getting an earful now. So why take her if they don't get along? Miles asked. Because Daddy Dearest never gives up on anything. Chapter 7. Anything, not anyone, Miles murmured. Tristan drove them out the open gate, which promptly closed just as the three-wheeler's rear bumper cleared the entry. He stopped abruptly. You say something? The older Fish girl said her father didn't give up on anything when speaking about Agatha. Figure of speech, you suppose? Not sure. Kitty Fish appears to enjoy her words. Tristan scowled as he looked both ways, as if deciding whether to pull out. There was no traffic. How about supposing you tell me where I can drop you off? I think I'm allergic to this neighborhood. The more I think about it, the more I'm certain this is a mistake. Too late. You're on the payroll for our little affair. You told her about me? Miles pointed to the side of the gate. There's cameras. Beatrix Fish knows what you look like. But I'm guessing Tristan isn't your real name, so if she wants to learn more, she'll have to track your vehicle. Why would you tell me that? That's not a comfort. I don't like this. I'm taking you back to the marshal's office. Take a left. Tristan glared at him before pulling out. I know which way to go. We're not going to the marshal's office. You're taking me to Gennady Fish's home, New Springs Estate. Leave me there, then you can go. Tristan tapped the steering wheel nervously as the little engine fought to accelerate. And you'll pay me? A little now, more later. I haven't been paid yet myself, but I need someone who knows their way around town. Should be worth your while. New Springs is somewhere to the north. I know where it is, Tristan said irritably. And I don't. Insight nagged him with a map of Seraph, but Miles didn't share the fact. Tristan's eyes darted to the rearview mirror, something a responsible driver would do. But with the light traffic on the surface streets, it had first felt like a mannerism, but then it grew annoying. "Either tell me we're being followed, or cut it out," Miles said evenly. "You're spending more time with your eyes behind us than paying attention to where we're going." "It's hard to tell. There was a sedan there like the one your two friends drove. Then there was a short bed lorry. And now there's a robot delivery dog. What if Mr. Fish has a whole team after us? Then we won't lose them. So how about not getting into an accident before we get to New Springs?" Tristan nodded, was about to say something but blew a long sigh. When his eyes wandered back to the mirror, Miles ignored him. "There's a house in there somewhere, I suppose," Tristan said. He had parked beneath the shade of an oak tree that towered over a decorative wall. Across the street was Beatrix Fish's home, a white stucco wall topped with red brick, with oleander growing tall behind it. A black lacquered wood swinging gate marked the driveway, and the tops of trees were visible beyond. But Tristan was right. Miles couldn't even see a rooftop beyond all the foliage. Insight shared the realtor's listings for the neighborhood. While Casa Fish wasn't listed, the nearest neighbors who had put their houses for sale owned sprawling single-level homes, nothing in his price range. After about 5 minutes of waiting, Tristan checked the mirror. "So we just sit here?" "That's exactly what we do. Settle in." "But someone will see us. They'll call the cops." "When that happens, I'll deal with it." A steady stream of robot delivery dogs came and went. None dropped anything off at the Fish home. Other traffic zipped past. Miles guessed it was the locals who drove the fastest, usually in higher-end electric coupes, but a few trotted past on horseback. Miles and Tristan rarely got more than a parting glance from anyone. Service vehicles comprised much of the traffic: gardeners, contractors, maintenance vans, and an open-bed truck delivering 6 geese. The geese went to the home with the decorative wall. Through the gaps, a spraying water feature splashed across a pond covered in water lilies. "All we have to do to fit in is pretend we're goose wranglers," Miles said. When a brown 6-wheeled tank with yellow militia insignias rolled past, Tristan stiffened and shrank in his seat. The armored vehicle had a turret, but it wasn't manned. The militia personnel inside the vehicle were obscured by the heavy window tinting. Tristan's breathing came hard and heavy. Miles kept his eyes forward. "Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Blocking one nostril will help. They're not going to do anything. They are just on patrol. They do that, don't they? No one called us in." Miles kept an eye on the rearview mirror. The tank was half a block down and turned on the first side street. "All right, let's roll." "You said they're not going to do anything." "I'm sure they have a camera on their vehicle, and if we're here on their return trip, they might take notice. Drive up to Mr. Fish's gate." Tristan didn't argue as he made a U-turn and pulled up to a freestanding call box. A silver lens stared at them. Miles reached across Tristan and touched the call button. A dog began barking inside the house, loud enough to hear. A large animal, Miles judged. "How may I help you?" Insight identified the aloof feminine voice from the box as a virtual assistant. The dog inside wasn't letting up. "I'm Miles Kim. I was hired by Beatrix Fish to inquire about the location of Agatha. Is Mr. Fish in? Please scan your contact information." Miles held out his device he had purchased when he had arrived in Seraph. It wouldn't provide anything but a callback number. "Thank you," the assistant said. "Your visit has been noted and forwarded to my client. Goodbye." Miles put his phone away and studied the call box and gate. "Goodbye yourself." "All right, let's go." Tristan backed up and got them driving. "That's the plan? Just give them your number?" "I see no reason to overcomplicate it. Everyone has told me what Mr. Fish is like. Time to find out for myself. If he calls, we might learn he's reasonable, and it's been a miscommunication with his ex, and Agatha is home before tea time." Tristan shook his head slowly, then muttered, "What planet are you from?" Chapter 8. The sun was set to broil as the early afternoon saw the most road congestion Miles had yet seen in Seraph. In River City, a pedestrian waltzing into the road against a red light risked dismemberment. Here, an unorchestrated chaos appeared to be the norm, as men, women, and children leapfrogged and scampered across the street with little in the way of traffic signals, as delivery dogs, trucks, and desert runners crossed into the incoming lanes to avoid them. "Is it always like this?" Miles asked. Tristan chuckled. "Monday through Saturday, and on Sunday it gets real crazy. No traffic signs, few markers for where folks were supposed to cross, and no zones dedicated to foot traffic. Yet by some unspoken agreement, instinct, or hive mind, it appeared to work." Miles directed Tristan to a parking spot. "Hungry?" Tristan jerked the three-wheeler to a stop and set the brake. "Always." Miles pulled off his jacket and felt the sweat under his arms. A few of the downtown buildings were higher than 2 stories, and some had underground parking, no doubt with climate control. The nicer sealed pedestrian vehicles rolled down the ramps, and the passengers never had to expose themselves to the heat or the perils of crossing the street. On a corner, a pair of bedraggled women had a pushcart loaded with clothes, containers, and blankets. One sat at the curb and held a white plastic sheet which read, "Credit for food? God bless." Past the panhandlers, a fancifully carved sign above a bed of succulents read, "The Caliper Club." The words were bracketed with a subtle gray set of calipers, as if the letters themselves were being measured. Tristan stopped in his tracks. "Here. My treat." Miles didn't wait as he hiked the steps to the club's entrance. The chilly interior air hit him like a damp sponge across his face. A wall fountain gurgled pleasantly. Ferns grew everywhere. Slate-gray stone reflected the cool white light filtering through the windows. A slab of polished black rock served as a reception desk, and beyond lay a spacious dining room crowded with patrons. A thin man in a lavender-ruffled shirt nodded farewell to a departing, well-dressed group who ignored him. The maitre d's smile tightened when Miles approached. Tristan kept close. "Table for 2, Miles said. The maitre d' regarded them coolly. "This is a members-only club, and we're guests of Gennady Fish." "Indeed? Mr. Fish isn't here. I'd be happy to take your name, and you can wait in the lobby until he arrives." Miles peered inside the dining room and saw what he was looking for. "We'll be at the bar." "Sir?" "Sir, wait. It would be best if you, sir." They endured a few sidelong glances, but the handful of bar patrons mostly ignored them as Miles made his way to the bartender. The maitre d' hadn't followed them. The bartender had his long brown hair up in a bun. His tuxedo shirt was rolled up at his elbows. "Drink menu?" "Green tea," Miles said. "Hot, and whatever my friend's having." "Beer." "And a mushroom sandwich, if you're serving food." "Right away." The bartender went to enter the order into a tablet and went to work on the drinks. "We're going to get thrown out," Tristan whispered. "Then why did you order a sandwich?" "It was the first thing listed on the specials board." The tea and the beer arrived at the same time as a thick-necked club staffer who was stretching the limits of his fancy button-down shirt. His red eyeglasses were augmented reality capable, and he wore a throat mic. "I'm afraid the club is members only, and we're here to see a member who isn't here presently." Miles glanced at the security guard's name badge. "Is waiting at the bar not allowed, Matteo?" "If you're guests of Mr. Fish, you'd have been prompted on the dress code when the reservation was made." "Charlie, my implants are a bit rusty and in need of a service update." "All right, we'll wait outside." Matteo, the security guard, escorted them, not only to the lobby but waved them towards the door. Tristan preceded them both in his haste to leave. Miles caught the door. He paused to take off his hat and showed Matteo both sides of his face. "What are you doing?" Matteo asked. "Making sure you get a good view for your records. I'm sure once this gets cleared up, I'll have my membership details on file. So, how's the grub here anyway?" Theo rocked a hand from side to side. "You're lying, but I'll have to take your word for it. For now." "That was embarrassing," Tristan said as they took refuge inside a corner coffee and sandwich joint. He appeared to be breathing too fast and watched the people in line in the street outside with equal levels of anxiety. Relax. I doubt they called anyone. We left when asked, but they got a good view of us. And that's a good thing? Someone in Beatrix Fish's circle will get the message. Just showing up at his front door is easily ignored. Someone actively poking around gets attention. Not the good kind. The counterperson brought out a pair of sweet pepper and soy burgers, along with 2 cups of tea. Miles ate. When he saw Tristan wasn't touching his, he asked, "Not hungry?" I lost my appetite. You gave me my ride. Go if you have to. I'll give you your credits. Tristan lifted the top piece of roll and examined the sandwich. Maybe a couple of bites? They finished eating and sipped tea and watched the late lunch crowd dwindle. Outside, the passers-by were a mix of casual and business and everything in between. Those inside the Caliper Club had been the best-dressed Miles had seen, and there weren't many of them coming and going on foot. He checked Beatrix Fish on the Seraph net and found surprisingly little, except for a few mentions on the news sites, usually his name in association with a business called Founder Corp. They were the money behind several land development and manufacturing and construction projects, but never the frontline producer of anything tangible. He copied and pasted the Founder Corp address into his virtual clipboard. A few social blogs tagged both Beatrix and Beatrix, but the mentions were few and far between, with the occasional appearance of either at a public or civic event. One comment mentioned their marriage had ended 20 years ago, which meant Agatha came along after the separation. When Miles again became fully aware of the coffee shop, Tristan was watching him. "You're still here," Miles said. "You haven't paid me yet. I have the address of Mr. Fish's place of business. Let's drive by there." When Miles told Tristan the address, Tristan let out a sigh and pointed at the tallest building in the downtown skyline. It was only a block away. "But you're not really thinking about going there, right? You believe he kidnapped his daughter and brought her to work?" "Probably not, but until I see for myself, I can't say for certain." Miles's phone pulsed. When he answered, Beatrix Fish's virtual assistant spoke. "Good afternoon, Miles Kim. Mr. Fish has agreed to see you. I will send the meeting information upon your acceptance." He glanced at the waiting prompt and didn't hesitate to tap yes. Chapter 9. While it was hardly a skyscraper, the headquarters for Founder Corp occupied a 12-story tower which stood 6 floors higher than its neighbors. All glass and steel with a high spire. Miles couldn't imagine any business in Seraph needing a place so large. It was as if the building was daring the caretakers above to smite them. "Go get your car and meet me at the front," Miles said. Tristan spat. "You're not going up there alone, are you? Would you come if I invited you?" "I'll get the car. If you're not out in 30 minutes, I'm leaving. I'm too old for this." Miles walked. He still couldn't get a sense of the town. Settled by people fleeing Meridian, yet here it was, becoming something similar, only with more chaos not concealed. Soon the population would demand traffic controls and better policing. It would be River City with a new rapper, and here he was in the thick of it. He hoped Dylan was finding the life he wanted and promised himself he would call his son. Outside the building, a row of drivers with bright carts festooned with lights, ribbons, and trinkets whistled and called for riders to choose their for-hire taxi. A rainbow-stickered van was parked in front of a sleek blue limousine. A crew of workers were using a vacuum mounted in the van to clean out the limo interior, while a driver in a checkered suit stood nearby and tapped away at their device. Above it all blared a radio program from inside the limo. "But that is how it will always be. The faithful will care for the faithless and poor. It is our burden, it is our blessing, it is our duty. For every unbeliever has a soul waiting to be awakened." Inside the Founder Corps building, Trish was waiting for him by the bank of elevators. She had her tan jacket buttoned, sunglasses on, and her ponytail neatly arranged. "Mr. Fish is waiting." She touched the elevator pad and one opened for them. She waited for Miles to enter first before accompanying him and pressing the button for the top floor. The door slid shut and it was hard to tell they were moving. "Gave pay well?" Miles asked. She ignored him for a moment. "What do you care? Private security in River City paid 10 times what I made as an army cop, plus perks. But then you have to live in River City, Trish said. She was silent for a moment. So, why didn't you take the job? My wife always said I was afraid of change. Then you shouldn't have come to Seraph. The elevator opened to a polished hallway with an intricate floor design. Miles couldn't tell if it was wood or stone. A glass block wall on the left was illuminated with red, blue, and purple lights from an invisible source. The other wall held a large window, revealing a spacious lounge suite on the opposite side with an expansive view of Seraph. At the end of the hall stood a receptionist's desk. A compact man in a dark suit waited in front of it. His hair was slicked back, he wore rings on several fingers, and sported a bolo tie with a cluster of sparkling rubies set in the clasp. Miles Kim, I'm Beatrix Fish. I have a few minutes. Won't you join me? The door to the lounge opened automatically as Beatrix led them inside. A full bar occupied one side of the room, replete with liquor bottles and a variety of glassware. On one wall was a smaller counter with teacups and a complex-looking espresso machine. It puffed wisps of steam. Beatrix Fish's other goon, Raz, stood behind the counter and was working at a tray set with 2 cups. Miles joined Beatrix at a set of plush suede lounge chairs set before one of the wide windows. Trish took up a position behind Miles at the bar, while Raz brought over the tray and served them. Each teacup had a head of caramel foam and a leafy design of white cream drawn on top. I hope you like chai tea, Beatrix said. Raz makes the best lattes. He should consider becoming a barista. He's a man of many talents. I only hire the best. Now I only have a few minutes for this, so let's get started. You came to my home and left a message. I was hired by your ex-wife to find Agatha. You're the retired cop who brought the train passengers home safely. You must have made an impression on Beatrix for her to reach out to you. I suppose. I didn't get much of a chance to speak with her during the attack on the train. Beatrix made a vague gesture. Actions speak for our abilities more than any resume. On that note, yours appears to have been erased. My people are the best at what they do, and Miles Kim exists only in a few archived records outside of Meridian's network. Thanks to Don Meridi. While having his records wiped meant he might have fallen off Meridian's radar, the thought it had been done so easily without his consent made his guts churn. I exist, Miles said, and you're a busy man. I'm sure Agatha running off with her father was a miscommunication with her mother. Do you have children? It's never simple. Agatha and her mother had a spat. Usually they blow over, but my youngest was particularly agitated when she messaged me, so I brought her to my home so she could calm down. Tell Beatrix she's fine. She'll be home in a few days' time and all will be as it was. I'll need to see her. Beatrix sipped at the edges of his tea. I'm afraid that's not possible. She's a fragile girl, and I'm not in the habit of letting strangers visit. I'm not that frightening. We could bring this matter to a rest. The answer's no. Agatha is in my care, and I'll not have her disturbed. Miles set his cup aside untasted, then let her mother call her. A quick chat to smooth ruffled feathers is hardly going to hurt Agatha. It's her mother. You've met Beatrix. It's never simple, it's never easy, and it most certainly won't be peaceful. I'm a father, Mr. Fish. Children are more resilient than that. Perhaps yours are, Beatrix said. I'm sure a police officer has the time and luxury to raise his children so they can stand alone against the tests life presents. Helping a young girl run away in the middle of the night doesn't make you a good father. I never said that I was. That's all the time I have for you. Tell Beatrix what you need to, but letting her know Agatha is safe will be the best for all involved. Except Agatha. The commanding view made the traffic below feel less intimidating. The vehicles, the vital connective tissue stretching through the veins of a young city. The pedestrians, her blood, and the glowing haze of the distant bright desert, a skin of wilderness, either held at bay or pressing in. Take your pick. Both Raz and Trish closed in on either side of Miles as he stood up. With a subtle nod from Beatrix, they relaxed slightly. Miles kept his smile fixed as he considered both goons. One thing we haven't addressed, Mr. Fish. What's that? Both of your employees here were keen on keeping me away from Beatrix after my first meeting with her. A mistake in my instructions, but I trust them. If their instincts told them you were a threat, I would believe them. They saw fit to send a warning. Were they mistaken, or are you a threat, Mr. Kim? But Miles wasn't waiting for another round of verbal riposte and parry. He had learned what he needed, and he knew that Beatrix Fish wasn't going to let Agatha go without a fight. Chapter 10. Miles remained tense until he was walking out of the lobby of the Founder Court building. He had expected both of Beatrix Fish's muscle to join him in the elevator for a last round of scowling, or to jump him as he stepped out of the lift and take him to the basement garage for another beatdown. But they were letting him leave. Tristan stood, leaning on his three-wheeler and holding a piece of cardboard as shade against the sun. I didn't think you'd come out. Time's almost up with seconds to spare. Miles hadn't set Insight's stopwatch. Most of that was spent riding up and down the elevator, the button stick. We're done here? Before Miles could answer, the roar of a big engine caught his attention. One of the six-wheel militia tanks swerved from the traffic lane and rolled to a stop with half its wheels on the curb. A trooper wearing a yellow helmet sat in the turret. 4 cops in identical plastic armor, helmets and sidearms, deployed and surrounded them. One of them had an officer's pip on their helmet. Miles Kim, you're to come with us. Am I being charged with something? Not yet. The officer nodded and the other cop secured Miles and placed cuffs on his wrists. Miles kept quiet, knew the drill but had always been on the other side of the exchange. Tristan stood stunned as Miles was hauled to the tank and shoved into the back. The rear compartment was a hard plastic sitting area with nothing to grab hold of as the vehicle lurched into gear. He tried his best to keep from bouncing out of the seat and had Insight track their distance in every turn. The cops' voices carried. From their chatter, he learned the officer's name, Lieutenant Chadi. They weren't leaving town. At least it wouldn't mean a lonely end in a desert grave, but he felt his heart sink when he saw the militia headquarters compound through the narrow slat window. It looked like a smaller version of Meridian's main prison. The white concrete keep had high walls and antenna arrays, cameras and shielded towers no doubt manned. A gate closed behind the tank like the steel jaws of a prehistoric shark. Insight provided some light reading on Seraph due process, but Miles shut the embarrassingly scant feed down when he learned the most recent update was from 20 years ago. The cops who assisted him down the step from the tank's holding compartment were relatively gentle. Lieutenant Chadi led the procession. They ushered him to a side building, a plain single-level concrete bunker with steel shutters over the windows. Miles was expecting a cell or interrogation cubicle, but he was plopped down at an unremarkable desk in an open office, opposite a female cop. She wore a yellow uniform with captain's bars on her collar and a monocle on her right eye. Her short dark hair was shot through with gray, and she had a face of freckles. The captain was typing with 2 fingers at an old terminal. Free him, Lieutenant. Lieutenant Chadi cleared his throat. Sir, this interview shouldn't take long. In fact, we have the cell ready. Don't make me ask twice, Chadi. And then you're dismissed. Lieutenant Chadi motioned to one of the cops who undid Miles' handcuffs. The rest of the militia troopers departed, leaving Miles and the captain alone. Be with you in a minute. Miles rubbed his wrists and looked about the office. No visible surveillance, but even if he could make it out the door, he was certain it would be guarded. He took a breath to steel his nerves and eased back, and waited. The captain stopped typing, pivoted and opened a file, read for a moment. Then she removed the monocle and considered him with her black eyes. Miles met her gaze. I have the report from the events on the train, she said. It appears Seraph should be grateful you were on hand. Just trying to get here in one piece, like everyone else. So modest. I'm Captain Sondabutra Sin, Yellow Tiger's militia. We keep order here in our town. Miles kept quiet. Captain Sin appeared experienced enough to know the trick of letting the perp fill in the blanks and invariably trip themselves up with a clumsy lie or a confession to something. And you are supposedly Miles Kim. No identification. Name and face not on any of the current registries. No address, no vehicle, no nothing but a temporary device you purchased upon coming to town. Do you know why you're here, Mr. Kim? Stunning good looks. Not even the hint of a smile. There was a complaint. It appears you entered a building downtown where you caused some trouble. No trouble. I was invited, so I wasn't trespassing. I had an interview with Beatrix Fish. Is he the complainant? No. Someone on his staff called and said you were making threats. We take this kind of accusation seriously. Miles tapped his lips contemplatively. Let me guess. Either Raz or Trish. They dress the same, so I get them confused. One makes a wicked latte, though. I made no threats. Mr. Fish and I had a conversation, and then I left. We'll be holding you until we finish our investigation, Kid. Is that the cell you have ready? Their word against mine? And how long will you hold me, until I get to talk to a lawyer? She slid the monocle into a vest pocket and began scribbling in a notebook. Beatrix Fish is an important man in Seraph, she said without looking up. He's an important man to keep as a friend for the Yellow Tigers. A call from him, or excuse me, one of his staff, means you scoop up whoever Mr. Fish tells you. Today it's me. My cousin Kamon served with a Miles Kim, a sergeant in a sister platoon who took over after all the officers were lying there in pieces or blast mad from days of shelling during the final real battle of the Caretakers' War, Black Swamp. The last stand where the besieging caretakers sent every last spider in their arsenal after the armistice had been signed. With all the technology, smart suits, helmet cams, and digital records, you'd think someone would have a picture. That was you, wasn't it? If you're going to start believing what I tell you, how about the fact I didn't threaten or cause any trouble with Mr. Fish? Come on, rest her soul, didn't talk about the war unless she was good and drunk. And back when she was alive, I didn't care to listen. Stupid kid. But one hot afternoon when I was laid out with a broken ankle, she was babysitting and was plastered on sugar rum. Told me how the machines sounded when they crawled across the rotted trees and through the sandy marsh. What their red mechanical eyes looked like before they cut loose with burner fire. Said you'd have half-second to duck if you were lucky enough to catch the flash. Then they'd charge. The machines, she said, could slice a soldier through and pierce their armor like it was nothing but fish scales. Kamon began describing one of the soldiers' screams when my mother came home and took her outside. I never heard another war story, and my mother never let that cousin babysit again. Jim's hardly a rare name in Meridian or New Pacific. Truly. But how many of them lost an arm and part of their face? It was the sergeant who was screaming as my cousin patched him up so he wouldn't bleed out. But he never quit fighting, and kept what was left of 2 platoons from breaking until it was all over. Was your cousin the medic? The doc was dead. She was a comm specialist and grunt with a burner rifle. Miles didn't trust his memory before his Insight module installation. Too many faces, alive and dead, blended into a blur. Where is Coleman now? The captain closed her notebook. Died 20 years ago. My mother helped care for her after Kamon's father died. She thought Kamon had a peaceful last few years, but one evening just before midnight, she took her own life. I'm sorry. Filing a charge against you isn't optional. I can't just issue a warning when the call comes from Founder Corp. I have a lieutenant who wants my job bad, and our board of directors won't look kindly on a decision that might jeopardize our civil contract. What you were doing at their building is your business. But does it have anything to do with what happened on the train? Indirectly. That's where I met Beatrix Fish. Captain Sin cocked her head. Beatrix? She's involved. I'm going to regret this, but why did you go to see Gennady? He took their youngest daughter, Agatha, and you thought you'd walk up to his office and get her back. Miles wasn't sure if he was being mocked. Sounded reasonable at the time. Beatrix hired me. That's the job. And how do you know it was Gennady? Footage from a couple of nights ago shows Agatha getting into a car with 2 of his goons. Staff. The captain massaged her forehead with a thumb. And you're going to bring her back. All right, here's the deal. I have to hold you. We get to keep suspects for a week without filing charges. We can stretch that up to 30 days with enough fudging, but I'm not going to do that. You're letting me go? Not exactly. I'm taking you to our booking desk and do some paperwork. It means you'll put down your name and a bioscan, and then you're going to plead guilty to all charges. Chapter 11. Miles sat in the plastic-walled holding room. The space was cramped, dim, and reeked of damp bleach. The plastic bench was cracked and a cheery shade of lime green, typical for a drunk tank. He guessed the militia company spent its credits on armored vehicles and weapons. The plastic composite wall to the hallway was transparent, but scratched and stained. On the opposite side of the clear barrier, a guard flirted with a prisoner in a neighboring cell. The man kept swinging a set of key cards around in his hand as he spoke, the clatter sounding like a deck of stiff playing cards being shuffled. And the guard was supposed to cut Miles loose. Miles had remained suspicious of Captain Sin when she escorted him across the yard between buildings to the large keep. There, under the eye of a sentinel drone armed with a charge stunner ready to fire, Miles confessed to a disorderly conduct infraction and allowed his thumb and good eye to be scanned. There's another place down the road from Frazier's, the guard outside the cell was saying. Wine club. Good ramen, live music. Looks like you're out tomorrow morning. I could fudge a log and let you walk right now. Miles got close to the door and drummed his metal fingers on the plastic. My time's up, he called through the door. Captain says to let me out. Keep your shirt on. Hate for you to get written up when all you have to do is swipe a card and get me through the front gate. I said just a minute. One more word and I thump you and put you in the infirmary. Miles quit drumming. Paced. A gaunt young woman in the neighboring cell shared a number. Her hands trembled. Her entire body shivered. Miles recognized a case of withdrawal shakes. The guard punched the information in his device. Maybe I'll get off shift and see you home? How's that sound? Whatever you say. I'll get my stuff back? All of it? I really need my juice. We'll see. Let me take care of this first. The guard buzzed Miles out. Miles walked quickly, but he wasn't fast enough for the guard. A baton smacked him across the small of the back just before they reached the door. Miles stumbled forward and landed hard on the concrete. Paid the captain off, didn't you? The guard asked. We had a special cell set up for you. Must have done something bad to someone. Don't think I didn't catch that you're walking out of here with nothing but a lingering fine, which will probably get written off. Then you'd also know that arresting me was a mistake. The guard kicked him. Not what I wanted to hear. In a situation like this, it's customary to offer a gratuity. I'm a little light. Let me get your name, and I'll make it up to you. The next kick came harder. Then the guard yanked Miles to his feet, dragged him through the door, and brought him to the gate, where he was unceremoniously conducted outside and left on the sidewalk. The guard tossed Miles' device on the ground before the gate shut. Miles groaned. He had suffered worse. The beatdown from Gennadi's goons compared favorably, yet even that hadn't been a top-tier clobbering. But he had been much younger for his most serious trouncings. Tomorrow, he'd be sore. He stood on wobbly knees. The phone screen was scuffed, but the device worked. Tristan's number went to voicemail. Miles sent him a text, then started walking. Reddish-brown clouds obscured the early evening sun. Dust stung his nostrils, and his skin felt itchy. He estimated a 30-minute walk to get back to his hotel room. Figured he needed a wash and a fresh approach. Mr. Kim? From across the street, Beatrix Fish's maid Celia stepped out of a four-wheeled runner. Mr. Kim, can we speak? Were you waiting here for me? I talked to your driver and he told me the Yellow Tigers picked you up, she said in a clipped accent. They didn't log the arrest, so I came to make an inquiry in person. Beatrix sent you? No, sir, Catherine did. Why would Kitty have you come here? Because she wants to see her sister safe. Were they talking about the same Kitty Fish? Miles waited for a passing car before crossing the street. And Mrs. Fish? Celia bit her bottom lip. She did her duty as a mother and hired you, but wouldn't call the cops. So she did enough to balm her conscience, or is it so she can show on paper that she paid someone to find her lost kid? Or is there something else? I don't understand the question. It's all right. Neither do I. This is getting weird. Do you report to Kitty now that you see I'm out? It is my duty. Miles opened the passenger door and eased himself into the seat. Does your duty include taking an old man back to his hotel? Celia stood in the center of the dingy room and appeared to not want to touch anything. Miles took a shower. The hotel's rationing system cut it off after 2 minutes, the weak spray barely enough to cut through the grime. He toweled off and got dressed. Your clothes are filthy, Celia said. I've been meaning to do some shopping. You're still here. Are you off for the evening? I've been tasked to assist you. Your driver? He quit? Made good on his threat. Your boss and her family have a reputation, and I guess the militia showing up was the last straw. I don't blame them. Celia nodded. Her becalmed face looked troubled. It's just me and the 4 walls, Miles said. When she appeared confused, he added, It's just you and me. No one's listening. You can speak freely. They are tortured souls. I feel sorry for them, the girls especially. Miles realized he had no comb or brush. Did his best with his fingers. I'm sure there's lots of folks who would trade places. That is not what I mean. I know Mrs. Fish is very wealthy, perhaps the wealthiest woman in Seraph, but every moment of her life is occupied with her struggle to justify herself to others, to her peers, her neighbors, the parents of other children in her circle. She is watched. Yeah. By her husband. Yes. Even though they have been separated for years, they still compete. It is in his eyes most of all. She seeks legitimacy. Kitty and Agatha are caught in the middle. Kitty doesn't seem to be suffering. She is very sad. She is also very brilliant. She works for one of her father's companies. She designs technology and works long hours until she is exhausted. Works for her father but lives with her mother. Why not live on her own, or stay with her father? I would never ask her these questions. She says she despises them both. I'm guessing you keep that to yourself. Hates both her parents? Not a new story, but she sent you to help me save Agatha. Celia nodded. Well, there's our answer. She loves her sister enough to stick around for her. Miles pulled on his hat and took a moment to check his reflection. You are injured. You should rest. Getting sleep isn't going to fix what's wrong with me. Besides, I still have some charge left in my battery. Celia's face remained neutral. That's a joke, he added. I understand the humor, I just did not find it funny. It's okay, Celia. Most people don't. I figure while I got you here, I might as well take advantage of it. What do you say we take a brief ride?